Two discussion item. The first one that we have is the La Cañada Flint Ridge City Resolution on redrawing of La Cañada Unified School District boundaries, as we know it, the Sagebrush area. Dr. Sheehan?
Okay. Just to kind of touch a little bit on the meeting at Mountain, thank you to those that attend. We did have a little bit larger crowd there. And so we had about 200, I would guesstimate, in the audience, and basically we gave a rundown, or I gave a rundown of the process that potentially will happen if there is no negotiated settlement, as well as certain aspects of a phase-in should we go down a negotiated settlement. So I tried to give both sides. And so we will get a little bit further information tonight, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Luke.
Thank you, Dr. Sheehan. And just to give our audience, our viewing audience, maybe a little bit of background on the transfer of territory. This is a request that began in May of this year, and it was at the City of La Cañada, and it was a request really to change the La Cañada Unified School District boundaries to be conterminous, or to match that of the city's boundaries of La Cañada. And as mentioned earlier by one of our speakers, this is an issue that seems to rise up every 10 years or so. And the last significant time was in 1991, and we went through a 10-year period of a lot of contentious litigation, back and forth, appeals, those sorts of things. And so our desire is to really look at this issue holistically. If we were to go through a normal process, that would be a request that would be made to the Los Angeles County Committee on School District Organizations, a very long title. That's in our LA County office. And the request would go to that commission, and it would be done by the group from La Cañada saying we would like that territory. They would like that territory. That commission would then make a ruling. This occurred in 1991. At that point in time, a decision was made, and then it was appealed to the State Board of Ed. Then we went into the court system. At this point, what we're looking at is really the impacts that are on our district, and there are a few different categories. One is that our revenue that we generate as a school district is based upon our enrollment and our attendance, and we have about 400 students that live in that area that we're looking at, that the request to transfer to the La Cañada Unified School District. That is a concern from an ongoing budgetary perspective. We also have questions as to the assessed valuation and the impact that will have on our community as a whole. We have two bond issues, Measure K and Measure S. We are currently collecting payments through the property tax system for those repayment of those bonds. We also have Measure S bonds that have not been issued. If we were to look at that area and the assessed valuation, it's approximately $500 million in assessed valuation, just under 2% of our total assessed valuation. So there is a question as to what would happen to the taxpayers that would remain in Glendale Unified. Would they need to pick up that larger tax payment as we move forward on those bonds that are issued, as well as those that will be issued? There is also the concern, as we've heard from the property owners, would they need to pay both bond issues? La Cañada has a bond issue that they are charging to their homeowners, as do we have Measure K and Measure S, as well as the parcel tax. So for the homeowners, there's a different perspective to look at. We have been in very, very positive discussions as to if this is a desire, a direction that we want to go, how could we do it in a way that really is supportive of Mountain Avenue as a school, and that would be as a phase-in. How could we do this in a way that would be very positive? But at this point in time, we have a few unanswered questions in the assessed valuation area, and it's really a discussion for the board as to how they would like to approach this as we move forward. If I could answer any questions, I'm not sure.
I do have one further comment that I meant to mention at the beginning. As far as Mountain Avenue, just to put people at ease, and I did mention this, regardless the situation, one of the comments is if we go through the commission route, it would happen, they would make a decision, depending on the district's recourse, potentially would go to the State Board of Ed, and if they ruled, and they ruled in La Cañada's favor, it would all happen overnight. And then it would be implemented, my hope or guess would be the next, feasible start of the next school year. Okay, so it would be an all or nothing. If we go in the phase-in route and we're to be able to come to a negotiated agreement, then we both agree for both districts, in the best interest of both districts, that it would be phased in. Now, one of my comments at Mountain Avenue is regardless the process that it goes, once a decision's made and if by chance the Sagebrush area were to transfer, we would take a good year of planning at the school with the school community to determine the best program that would fit for Mountain. And so I know that was touched on by a couple of our speakers. And so if we were to make a decision this year, we would not look for something to go into place next September, for example, or next August. So I just wanted to clarify that. We would take a full year to make sure we do a good job, get input from all parties concerned as we move forward. So we are open for discussion or questions.
Mr. Krikorian?
Thank you, Nadia, and thank you, Dr. Sheehan, for predicating. That's important. I want this message stated loud and clear to not only the Mountain Ave residents, but that the community itself and the students and the teachers and the faculty and the family that's there. One thing I know, and I pretty much, I think a lot of my colleagues agree with this, is protecting the integrity and the culture and the character. That's school's important to us. That's unequivocal. That's without any debate. Dr. Sheehan mentioned any type of phase-in, type of communication. We would bring in the school families and define a direction together how we see best fit, because it's important to protect the integrity of each of our elementary schools, even though we have 20 of them. But Mountain Ave is an important part of our family, and protecting the neighborhood and protecting the long history of the families that belong to Mountain is going to be part of our forward thinking, and that'll be a phase-in. Going back to this issue itself, I think it's important, too, what we've broached as an elected body and how we come to this point, because far too many times when there's conflict, it creates more chaos. Conflict creates cost. Conflict is an expensive notion, because then, lo and behold, in the United States, there's lawsuits, and it becomes even more of a complicated issue. The one thing we have done is, and I want to say this, is that we have had good discussions with the community leaders in La Cañada, very positive communications with their school district. And I think it embodies the work that we've done with the California School Boards Association, which we're members of. It embodies our governance standards of protecting the education of our children. And having organizations like that, such as 5-Star, and for those of you who may not know what 5-Star is, it's the 5 school districts: La Cañada School District, Glendale, Pasadena, South Pasadena, and Burbank. The 5 of us work together on issues, share resources, so we have a good communication stream. And the reason why I'm predicating that was how we broached this subject of talking to a couple of their school board members and having positive dialogues, because if we look at past history, there's been 5 years, 9 years of battles back and forth and creating divide between neighbor versus neighbor and creating divide amongst the community. At the end of the day, we're both trying to provide an education for our children in this country of America, and so happens to be the boundaries of Glendale for many years. It's always been that way for 100 years. It's been our, I know La Cañada got incorporated, I think in 1976 it was, or 1970s, to where 76 was the type of thing. So we've been providing education, quality education to all those students. We're going to continue to do that. But as an elected leader here in this community, as one of the board members, I was assigned to at least to communicate and forge some type of positive communication. You know, it's ironic through this whole time, media was trying to stir up the pot, trying to create chaos, trying to create hysteria, like there's panic and what's going on. And by all means, I'll say this, and it goes to exemplify the leadership of La Cañada from Scott and John and a few other people we're working with. It shows character of that we're trying to find common ground that both sides could move forward together and keep a very strong relationship, and I appreciate all that. But at the end of the day, we also have fiduciary duty to our taxpayers, we have fiduciary duty to our district, and it has to make economic sense for us. And I know that's some of the things that we did broach, because any time you do any type of transfer like this, it's done. And we got to look at the transfer and how it phases in. I know we've discussed phase-in discussions, right? That'll be some of the discussions. And there's going to be opportunities for open dialogue for parents that want to continue with that school. There'll be phase-ins on how we do it. My whole concern is the transfer and how we're able to protect our taxpayers with the bond, and two, the transition with the school itself. By all means, the last thing I want to do is change the culture and integrity of that school of Mountain Ave. I think you heard that loud and clear today, but I think it's our own feeling too. My feeling is this: if we can't come to some common ground and we can find a thing that works with us, I'm for exploring some serious resolution. As one board member, not speaking for all of us, I'm seriously thinking if we could avoid conflict and find areas to where we could find common ground that doesn't put us in a financial position where we're going to hurt our programs or hurt ourselves, because the long-term benefit is going to benefit La Cañada in a lot of ways. And to be honest, I look at it as a way here that we're going to be as two bodies to really set a precedent, not only here, that this will reverberate throughout the state, that we're able to find and work together without bringing in heavy legal war of 9 years and digging in. And it's my hope we could avoid that. But obviously it has to make financial sense. It has to make financial sense not only to our bottom line, but it has to make financial sense to the greater good for our goals of the mission of the district. And two, I'm sure La Cañada is feeling the same thing. They want to make a decision to help their bottom line, their enrollment, and keeping it cohesive of the community. And I think at this time, hearing the presentation and the funding mechanisms and the possible valuations of, I'm open to really explore some strong possibilities of us moving forward with being open to the community of what rolls out. And I liked your suggestion, Dr. Sheehan, too, of once this unfolds, that there'll be a premeditated plan that we dictate with or work with Mountain Ave and maybe Monte Vista community, so we keep that cohesiveness there, because I think that's the fabric of our, especially our elementary schools, is having that neighborhood school. I mean, I still remember Annie E. Norris Elementary School in East Hartford, Connecticut. We used to walk with our knapsacks cut across. We had cornfields in Connecticut, believe it or not. But we'd cut through and we'd walk a mile to go to school if we missed uphill.
In the snow.
And I'll leave the snow alone. But we had clean air. We didn't have the smog. I'm kidding. But, it's still, but we had the integrity of that culture at that school. And I think that's the point that a couple of the moms and the parents said today is definitely well taken. That's not going to take me. But I know my other colleagues have some comments they want to add to this too. But that's it for now.
Thank you. Ms. Walters?
I just have a couple clarification questions from Ms. Luke about specifically the property taxes. So can you clarify? I think there is some distinction between the obligations of that area for bonds that are already issued, so that would be all of Measure K and Measure S where we've issued bonds already, versus what we have not yet issued. Is that, can you talk about that?
That's correct. And my understanding is that with the bonds that are issued, that they would stay with the property tax, with the residents of that area for Measure K and Measure S.
For what's been issued already?
What's been issued.
Okay.
What has not been issued, that would be distributed against the balance of Glendale Unified, the remaining Glendale Unified residents.
Okay.
And can I just clarify?
Please.
Okay, if you talk to three attorneys, you may get three different interpretations on that. And that is one of the issues that we're facing is there's, as they like to say, a lot of ambiguity in the education code on this. And so that is one of the things that we are trying to get clarification, and so we are working with both bond counsel and a regular counsel, but as of right now, that is our understanding.
Okay. I guess I'm really, throughout this issue, I'm really struggling with what's fair, and and honestly struggling because I am very sympathetic to La Cañada and their interest in community cohesion, and so I definitely understand that point of view, and we have enjoyed a very strong working relationship with La Cañada Unified, and I anticipate that will still continue. The issues that we're facing, clearly one is that, we have a loss in operating revenue when we take the students out, and it's a pretty immediate impact when we're moving that many students. That one, I think we can probably, that one I'm a little less concerned about. I don't like it, but I'm less concerned about it. I'm much more concerned about the bonds, the repayment. So if there is an ambiguity on whether or not they would be responsible for bonds that are already issued, that's very concerning. Also, we have some very specific plans for Measure S, which that community had a vote on, and so we already have more projects. We could do double the number of projects than the amount of money that we even obligated ourselves to with Measure S, but we very specifically chose a number that was going to, the $270 million was very specifically, we calculated how much our taxpayers, property holders, were going to have to pay over the long haul, because we really didn't want to increase the burden on our property holders. So this very potentially is going to do one of two things. It either does increase the burden, which I'm not sure we can do based on the promises that we made with that bond, or we end up having to issue less bond, which is less money to do projects, of which, as I said, we have so many things that we want to do. And because we're not losing a property so Mountain Avenue is not in, part of that area, because the school doesn't go with it. It's not as if we can say, okay, well, there's one less school, so there's, X million dollars less of projects, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm really struggling with that piece, because that's where I feel like, that's not fair. I really, if I were choosing, I wish we could, just come to an agreement that families in that area can choose what school district that they want to be part of. So that, it's very simple. If the students who are in Sagebrush, that we would automatically release to the La Cañada School District if that's where they wanted to go, and the students who wanted to go to Glendale, obviously they're in the district, so that's fine. It would certainly be a whole lot cleaner especially from the property tax point of view. So I guess I don't know how that has gone as far as in the discussions that we've had, but I certainly I would strongly encourage that would at least be reconsidered, because again, I think it's very, very messy, and it's very damaging to consider losing that area for basically all the rest of our Glendale schools. And so I think that's a pretty high price for a community to pay, so that another community can have a little more cohesion for a small part of their city. So I would hope that La Cañada would seriously consider that possibility, because, as I said, it would certainly be much cleaner, and I think it's the closest to fair than as what we could get.
Ms. Booker?
Well, first of all, I'm Irish, and I don't believe in giving up land. Secondly, I'm astonished by the gentleman from La Cañada's definition of community. And I'm stunned to hear that the children who live in Sagebrush don't feel a part of the La Cañada community. I think of all the children who live in La Cañada who go to private schools. Do they feel equally left out of the La Cañada community? You know, one of the things that I think enriched my children's lives was the fact that they belonged to philanthropic and educational and sports organizations that allowed them to be a part of the lives of children who lived throughout our community. And for me, community is not just the Glendale Unified School District. It is certainly the La Cañada area and the adjacent Burbank areas and Atwater and Pasadena, all of these places where our children meet at sports teams or Boy Scouts or church. When my children were in high school at Glendale High School, there was a large contingent of young people who belonged to La Cañada Press. I believe they were welcomed there with open arms, even though they didn't live in La Cañada. Sagebrush has been a part of the Glendale Unified School District for about 130 years now, as I recall, and we have twice been through this before, and both times it has been decreed that Sagebrush is a part of the Glendale Unified School District. It is not the least bit unusual in the state of California to have school districts that are not confined or boundaried by a city's boundaries. I agree with Mrs. Walters. The only truly ethical and moral decision that I see to be made here is a quite simple one. We simply create Sagebrush as an open enrollment area. If you want to go to La Cañada, go to La Cañada with our blessings. If you want to stay in Glendale, stay home. We are really happy to have you here. I am also concerned that this issue was raised not by the La Cañada School District, but by the City Council, which just has really unpleasant overtones of politics for me. I realize that La Cañada is struggling financially. I know they're small, and I realize they're going to be hard hit by the new funding. But if the kids in Sagebrush really want to go to La Cañada, we make it an open enrollment, there's no problem, and there's no need for any of us to expend millions of dollars on attorneys or any other aspect. If all that the people in La Cañada are concerned about is that their children be able to go to La Cañada schools, then Mrs. Walters has offered the perfect solution.
Dr. Garabedian?
But I have three words to say. Accountability, accountability, and accountability. I think as board members, we are accountable for making the right decision and not giving thing away too easily, whoever comes forward. And as a district, we have accountability of to be financially stable, and we have accountability to repay for the bonds that all the citizens in Glendale promise to pay back. So, and you know, those three entities are what makes this happen, and I think concentrate on that. We'll make the right decision, but again, you know, Ms. Luke said 400 students, but the impact is not only 400 students, it's a lot more, generation over generation after generation. Completely agree with Ms. Boger and Ms. Walters that open enrollment, if we can do that, I think that's the perfect solution to address this. And,
Thank you. Thank you. And I will add, well, I appreciate the comments of my board colleagues. I would like to see a positive process as we move towards some sort of a resolution. I'm mindful of the cost and benefit of litigation or possibility of litigation. And I'm mindful of the impact that letting the redrawing of the boundaries that it will have on Mountain Avenue students, on the families there, and our school district as a whole. It is not only that school and the students there that will be impacted, but our school as a whole will be impacted. And I do trust in our ability to come up with an educational plan, and for fall 2015 is what I'm hearing, where it's plenty of time to have the Mountain Avenue family be involved in the decision-making process of having an educational program at Mountain Avenue that will be very welcoming and very enticing to students and parents, and that we will be able to build the enrollment numbers at Mountain Avenue. That will have a cost as well, and so in terms of staff time and our commitment to build something new and different, and that has a cost to it as well. I'm sympathetic to the idea of having cohesiveness and La Cañada wishing to have this area be part of La Cañada Unified School District. And at the same time, in the state of California, as Ms. Boger said, these sorts of things are not unusual, that a city lines do not match the lines of the school district. And having said that, looking at the litigation cost and benefit, as much as we can do to work something out together where it is a positive outcome for both sides, I'm interested in that. I'm highly concerned about the bond issue. There's a lack of clarity there. I'm wondering how or when we could have clarity, or if we have, we will, so that's a question that's probably doesn't have an answer at the moment, but that's a piece that's important to know in order to move forward. What kind of an impact it'll have on the families living in the Sagebrush area, and what kind of impact it will have on the families of Glendale Unified School District as a whole. And I like the idea of permissibility and choice for a very, very long time to come, and having that be a part of what will work as if we are to move forward in this. And so I know some things will have to be discussed further, and so those are my thoughts right now. Any additional comments, Dr. Sheehan, as we move forward on this?
No, well, this will be coming back to the next meeting. We are in negotiations, as we have clearly stated. We're getting to a point where I do believe a decision will be made shortly, one way or the other. And so, once again, we do appreciate the work of the La Cañada School Board, the La Cañada City Council, as we move forward. But we are getting to a point where, okay, as I said before, a decision will be made, and we will move forward with it.
Okay, moving on to discussion item number 2, proposed